One country pays fast food workers $4,200 a month. Another guarantees 6 weeks paid vacation on minimum wage. These are the 10 countries where the lowest legal salary buys more than most Americans earn. The American dream promises that hard work pays off. But in 2026, a full-time minimum wage worker in the United States earns $15,080 a year, roughly $1,257 a month, before taxes. That's below the poverty line for a family of two. Meanwhile, across 10 countries, the legal minimum salary doesn't just beat America's minimum. It outperforms what the average American takes home. From European welfare states to a tiny Pacific nation you've probably never heard of, these are the 10 countries where the lowest paid workers live better than most Americans realize is possible. Number 10. Ireland. The Celtic Tiger didn't just roar in tech. Ireland's minimum wage sits at €12.70 per hour, roughly $2,210 a month. That's 76% higher than the US federal minimum. But here's what the number alone doesn't tell you. Irish minimum wage workers get 4 weeks of mandatory paid vacation, universal healthcare access through the HSE, and statutory sick pay. An American earning the same dollar amount would need to buy private health insurance, fund their own retirement, and hope they don't get sick during unpaid time off. Ireland's effective purchasing power on minimum wage, when you add the social safety net, is estimated at 30 to 40% higher than the raw number suggests. Dublin is expensive, no question. Rent can eat half your paycheck. But outside Dublin, in Galway, Cork, or Limerick, that $2,210 a month stretches significantly further. The minimum wage has risen 8 times in the last decade, and the government is legislating a living wage to replace it by 2026, targeting 60% of median earnings. Number 9. France. The SMIC, France's minimum wage, is sacred. It's automatically indexed to inflation and median wage growth, meaning it rises every single year without a political fight. As of 2025, the SMIC pays €11.65 per hour, about $2,060 a month net. Lower than Ireland per hour, but the French social system makes that number deceptive. Every SMIC worker gets 5 weeks paid vacation, by law, plus up to 11 public holidays. Universal single-payer healthcare rated the best in the world by the WHO. A pension system that replaces up to 75% of your salary in retirement. Subsidized childcare, housing assistance, and transport vouchers. When researchers calculate the total compensation value of France's minimum wage, including benefits, it exceeds $3,200 a month in equivalent value. An American would need to earn roughly $55,000 a year to match what a French minimum wage worker receives in total compensation. The trade-off? France's unemployment rate runs higher than America's, around 7%. The generous floor makes hiring more expensive. But for those who do work, the floor is remarkably high. Number 8. Germany. Europe's largest economy only introduced a minimum wage in 2015, and it was controversial. German industry insisted wages should be set by collective bargaining, not government mandates. But since its introduction at €8.50, it has risen to €12.82 per hour, about $2,230 a month. Germany's approach is pragmatic. The Minimum Wage Commission reviews rates every 2 years based on collective bargaining trends across 50,000 agreements. It's not just a number picked by politicians. It's anchored to what organized workers already negotiate. German minimum wage workers get 4 weeks paid leave, universal health care through the Krankenkasse system, where premiums are split 50-50 with employers, and access to one of the strongest vocational training systems in the world. The dual education system means even minimum wage workers often have formal qualifications. But the real story is regional. In Munich, $2,230 barely covers rent. In Leipzig, Chemnitz, or Dresden, the same paycheck rents a 2-bedroom apartment with money left over. Germany's minimum wage works because it's designed as a floor beneath an already robust collective bargaining system, not a substitute for one. Number 7. United Kingdom. The UK calls it the national living wage, and it's one of the fastest growing minimum wages in the developed world. As of April 2025, workers 21 and over earn £12.21 per hour, about $2,340 a month. That's a 55% increase in just 8 years. The UK's strategy is deliberate. The Low Pay Commission, an independent body of academics, employers, and union representatives, sets the rate to reach 2/3 of median earnings by 2025. They're nearly there. British minimum wage workers get 5.6 weeks of paid annual leave, the highest statutory minimum in Europe. The National Health Service provides free healthcare at point of use, and statutory parental leave can stretch to 39 weeks paid. The catch is that British costs are brutal. London is one of the most expensive cities on earth, and even regional costs have surged post-Brexit. But the trajectory matters more than the snapshot. The UK minimum wage has grown faster than inflation every year since 2016. A minimum wage worker in 2015 earned the equivalent of $1,420 a month. Today it's $2,340. That's not gradual improvement. That's transformation. Number 6. New Zealand. The country at the bottom of the world quietly runs one of the highest minimum wages on the planet. 23.15 New Zealand dollars per hour, roughly $2,200 a month. But the purchasing power story is what makes New Zealand remarkable. The cost of living outside Auckland is 20 to 30% lower than comparable US cities. Factor in ACC, the accident compensation scheme that covers all injury costs for every resident, universal public health care, and a superannuation pension that requires zero contributions from workers, and New Zealand's minimum wage buys a quality of life that would require $50,000 to $55,000 annually to replicate in America. New Zealand also has no tipping culture. Prices are what prices are. A minimum wage worker in Wellington or Christchurch keeps every dollar they earn without the psychological tax of wondering if they tipped enough. The Kiwi approach treats the minimum wage as the actual minimum acceptable standard of living, not a starting point for negotiation. Since 2017, it has risen from 15.75 to 23.15 NZD, a 47% increase. New Zealand proves you don't need to be a European welfare state to build a high floor. Number 5. Belgium. The most overlooked economy in Western Europe runs what might be the most worker-friendly minimum wage system on earth. Belgium's guaranteed minimum monthly income sits at €2,029, about $2,220, but it auto-indexes to inflation through a mechanism called the health index. When prices rise, wages follow within months. No negotiation, no legislation, no political theater. It just happens. Belgian workers get automatic 13th month pay, meaning minimum wage workers receive 13 paychecks per year instead of 12. That extra month's salary effectively raises annual earnings by 8%. Add in mandatory meal vouchers worth €8 per working day, eco-vouchers, commuter reimbursement, and one of the world's most generous healthcare systems, and Belgium's total minimum compensation package is estimated at over $2,900 a month in equivalent value. Belgium also mandates a maximum 38-hour work week and 4 weeks paid vacation plus 10 public holidays. The effective hourly rate, when you factor in the shorter work week, is higher than it appears. The country has a reputation for being boring. But boring, in this case, means a minimum wage system that quietly outperforms almost everyone. Number 4. Netherlands. The Dutch don't just set a high minimum wage. They engineered an entire system around it. As of 2025, the minimum hourly wage is €13.68, yielding about $2,380 a month. But the Netherlands added something unique in 2024. They switched from a monthly minimum to an hourly minimum for the first time. The old system allowed employers to set longer work weeks, diluting the hourly rate. Now every hour is guaranteed. Dutch workers get 4 weeks paid vacation minimum, but most collective agreements provide 5. There's a mandatory 8% holiday allowance. A lump sum paid in may equal to 8% of your annual gross salary. That's separate from the 13th month many Dutch employers offer. So a Dutch minimum wage worker can receive 14 months' pay for 12 months' work. Add universal health care at roughly €130 a month, government-subsidized childcare covering up to 96% of costs for low earners, and one of the best public transit systems in Europe, and the Netherlands minimum wage buys a middle-class lifestyle by American standards. The World Happiness Report consistently ranks the Netherlands in the global top 6. The minimum wage floor is part of why. Number 3. Luxembourg. The smallest country on this list pays the biggest minimum wage in the European Union. Luxembourg's minimum social wage for skilled workers is €3,085 per month, roughly $3,380. Even the unskilled rate is €2,570, about $2,820. That's more than double the US federal minimum. Luxembourg achieves this through a unique economic model. The country of 660,000 people hosts a financial sector managing €5.7 trillion in assets. 1 in 3 workers is a cross-border commuter from France, Belgium, or Germany. The economy is built on high-value services, banking, and EU institutions, which can absorb high labor costs. But here's the insight most people miss. Luxembourg's minimum wage is automatically adjusted every time cumulative inflation exceeds 2.5%. This indexation has existed since the 1970s. Workers never lose purchasing power. The country also provides near-free public transport, the first nation in the world to make all buses, trams, and trains free in 2020. Minimum wage workers pay zero for their daily commute. With free healthcare, free education through university, and subsidized housing programs, Luxembourg's minimum wage floor is arguably the highest true standard of living any minimum wage worker achieves anywhere on Earth. Number 2. Switzerland. There is no national minimum wage in Switzerland. The country rejected one in a 2014 referendum. But individual cantons have stepped in, and what they've said is staggering. Geneva's minimum wage is 24 Swiss francs per hour, about $4,160 a month. Basel City pays 21 francs, Zurich 23.90, Neuchâtel 21.09. These are the highest subnational minimum wages anywhere on Earth. Switzerland's approach is characteristically Swiss, decentralized, precise, and practical. Rather than a one-size-fits-all national rate, each canton sets its floor based on local cost of living. Geneva is one of the world's most expensive cities, so it pays accordingly. The Swiss system works because it sits on top of an extraordinarily strong collective bargaining framework. About 50% of workers are covered by collective agreements that set wages well above the cantonal minimums. The minimum wage is the absolute floor beneath the floor. Swiss minimum wage workers also benefit from mandatory pension contributions, universal health care where premiums are subsidized for low earners, and 4 weeks minimum paid vacation. The cost of living is brutal. A Big Mac costs $7.50. But the purchasing power, adjusting for what that salary actually buys in daily life, still outperforms most American salaries. A Geneva minimum wage worker earns more per month than 60% of American workers. And at number 1, the country that has quietly built the most comprehensive minimum wage system on the planet, Australia. The national minimum wage is 24.10 Australian dollars per hour, about $2,520 a month. But that number is almost irrelevant because of what sits on top of it. Australia's modern award system covers over 100 industries with specific minimum pay rates that almost always exceed the national minimum. A barista under the Restaurant Industry Award earns a higher minimum than the national floor. A retail worker under the General Retail Award earns even more. A fast food worker under the Fast Food Industry Award starts at 25 Australian dollars and 57 cents per hour. These aren't negotiated perks. They're legal minimums for each industry. Australia also mandates a 11.5% superannuation contribution paid by employers on top of wages directly into a retirement fund. This is rising to 12% by 2025. An American worker earning $60,000 gets zero mandatory retirement contribution from their employer. An Australian minimum wage worker gets 12% automatically. Casual workers, those without guaranteed hours, receive an additional 25% loading on top of their hourly rate to compensate for the lack of benefits. Sunday penalty rates can double the hourly wage. The Fair Work Commission reviews the minimum wage annually using a data-driven process that considers inflation, productivity, business conditions, and the needs of the low-paid. It has risen every single year since the Commission's founding. Add in universal Medicare, for weeks paid annual leave, 10 days paid sick leave, and 18 weeks government-funded parental leave, and Australia's minimum wage isn't just a number on a paycheck. It's an ecosystem designed from the ground up to ensure that the lowest-paid worker in the country can afford rent, food, healthcare, retirement, and a life. The total compensation package for an Australian minimum wage worker is estimated at the equivalent of $58,000 to $62,000 annually. That's higher than the American median household income. The lowest-paid workers in Australia, by design, live better than the average American. That's not an accident. It's policy. Which country's minimum wage surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. If this changed how you see wages around the world, subscribe and hit the bell. We rank the world's most eye-opening data every single week.